So, hello everyone, and welcome to Series 5, Episode 3 of my Names and Lights series. So, a lot of people have been really enjoying the interviews that we've had so far. I've had my most favorite, story from Judy G. Russell of a great story that she's uncovered in her own family history, and also the darker side of genealogy, which we also know that does happen. Um, and it won't be for everyone, but it does happen for some. And Megan Smoliniak gave us an example last week. Anyway, this one I thought I'd try and variate my that's not even a word. Vary my guests in terms of professional genealogists to different things. So tonight I have genealogy mystery author and genealogist, of course, Nathan Dillon Goodwin. Hello, Nathan.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Coping again, hoping that internet isn't flimsy and everything works. But so far, 1 minute in, we're doing fine. So I'm just going to say this now because we have a couple of people in here already. But if anyone has any questions they want to ask Nathan, please do drop them in. I'm assuming they can ask you about a book or things, or
Yeah,
can they?
yeah.
Okay,
I might not answer
he's
them,
giving you
but
all the go.
yeah.
He's giving you all the go ahead. So get their questions in, and I will ask them later on. So, I suppose for people who aren't familiar with you, although judging by the fact that you're an author that kind of writes genealogy-related content, could you perhaps introduce yourself to those who mightn't be familiar with your work?
Yeah, so I'm Nathan Goodwin. I'm an author. I started writing local history books about Hastings, which was where I grew up, and then moved on to genealogical crime mysteries. I've also done a historical fiction, but I think most people know me for the genealogical crime mysteries. So one series of books is up to book 9 now, and that's Morton Farrier, and he's basically a genealogist has to solve crimes using genealogy. And another series that I'm just editing book 2 on now, which is set in America, and it's investigative genetic genealogy, so solving serial killer cold cases from years ago using DNA and genealogy. So that's me in a nutshell.
So I can imagine that probably takes up, a substantial amount of your time, Nathan. But what started it all off for you? Because I can imagine there's probably a good story here.
Well, I tell people I started with my family history when I was about 12, but and that's true. But I wouldn't say it was genealogy really that I was doing. Just didn't have a clue what I was doing. And obviously back then there was no internet or the records that we have available now. So I used to sit there and kind of just copy out family trees with me at the centre of it, obviously, and not really know what I was doing. But I started on my grandmother's side, the Dengates, and I think I think I started with them because she was one of those wonderful people that actually kept everything family tree related. So newspaper cuttings, she had scrapbooks, she had loads of photo albums, and wrote on the back of pretty well all of them, which was really good for me, with names and places and whatever. And it's quite. My family came from Hastings and the surrounding villages, the Dengates, so I kind of knew that area quite well, and so it's quite easy for me to kind of picture at least these names that I was writing down. And she would also take me to Hastings Cemetery near to her house, and it's only really recently I've kind of appreciated quite how many family members were buried there. So she would take me mainly to her parents' graves, so my great grandparents, but also my great great grandparents are buried there, and one set of great 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 grandparents, loads of cousins and uncles, and distant family, and that kind of got me started. Yeah, when I was about 12, and didn't have a clue what I was doing, and didn't really couldn't I did my own money obviously, so couldn't really buy certificates and go places really. But I kind of did these kind of on and off over the years. And when I was like 14, I interviewed my great great aunt, and she was born in 1895. Took some notes from her, but unfortunately, I asked kind of the wrong questions. I was more interested in the kind of the names and the dates of the family members and things that I can find now on on the internet in seconds. Really, I should have been asking what her life was like growing up and what her family members were like. Personalities and what school was like for her, etc. But anyway, and then probably about 1998, I started doing it a bit more seriously and broadened my research into various lines of my family, and was then able to go to the Family Records Centre in London and look through the registers and look through the census and everything. And yeah, kind of it's kind of got carried on from there really, and just then has now turned into from a hobby, it's turned into my job as well.
And I do kind of, and one thing that you said about kind of, you you were focusing on the names and the dates when you kind of think that you were focusing on the wrong questions.
Mm.
And I think it can be something that we might not so much forget to ask, but just kind of, we might kind of deprioritize it because they're still around, and we can ask them that at a later date. Um, like just briefly, because I know I ramble a lot. Is that I know kind of in primary school, one thing that that people were tasked with doing, it wasn't necessarily genealogy per se, but kind of one little activity that teachers would get you to do is kind of contact your grandparent or a grandparent, however many you had, and ask them about their lives. Now, I only had one to ask, but kind of, just hearing so like little little stories about, my grandfather, and so like just sort of growing up, even that was interesting, because he'd always talk about how his mother, who was a teacher, and so like, just like during the war actually as well,
Mm-hmm.
World War Two, because he was born in the 1930s. So even that was interesting to me. Um, but I had that somewhere in the attic, and I need to go and find it. But sorry, you're just that got me thinking about that.
No, it's
Um,
really important. It's really important. I got my nan to write down her. I know my granddad, in fact, both of them. They both wrote down their life story for me, which was really good and has allowed me to kind of understand that more personal side of family history and their lives growing up. In the kind of 20s and 30s, and then through the war. So it's really important. So I think people do overlook it, and I mean I'm guilty of that too. There are people that I still in the family that are senior generation that I need to go and speak to. I'm trying. I've got a list of people.
uh, definitely. And sorry, I was just getting my questions because I thought I had them at the start, but no, my phone decided to go silly buggers on me. Uh, so what resources have you found most helpful? So, uh, I'd imagine you'd probably look at a wide variety of resources kind of when you're researching, because you might have just, I don't know where kind of your ancestors are from. I'm presuming they were somewhere in England, but kind of just, it, for someone who does Irish research, daily, near enough, kind of what resources would you use in your own research?
Yeah, so my family are predominantly they're from England and predominantly southeast England as well. So Kent, Sussex, Essex, Norfolk, Wiltshire, Cornwall, Devon. So very south and London. So I always come back to I'm quite cautious when I'm doing my research, and I'm very much like I need several sources to actually prove this ancestry hint that's waving at me and saying this is my great 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 grandfather, whatever. And I think going back to when I used to do my research at the Family Records Centre, I think those core records, it was actually really good, even though I think of the hours and hours and hours I spent doing things that I can do at the touch of a button now. That's kind of ingrained in me the importance of actually just those basics: the birth, marriage, and death records, the census records, baptism records, the things that are really going to prove these, your links in the family tree. So the core things have been always been helpful and always will be. But now, I mean, I know subscriptions to these databases can be quite expensive, but I kind of see it as the other way around of what record or what document or what do I need to solve this particular research problem. So if I need to go and get a certificate, I'll get a certificate. If I need to look at ancestry, I'll find my past or deceased online or find a grave or whatever it is. I'll use those resources. But I think as well, a big thing for me in the last few years in particular has been the advent of DNA in genealogy. So having the traditional genealogy on one side being then supported by DNA, that's really helped push my my research forward. And also it's kind of confirmed, fortunately, on most lines, it's confirmed the paper trail. The DNA matches and people descend how they should descend to me. A couple of exceptions in there, but that's been really good as well. And obviously making new contacts as well in my cousin matches and find out how they link into the family tree. So it's kind of that balance really of traditional research and the real basics, and then the much more new, I suppose, DNA technology.
Yeah, and I mean, for my own case, I don't have a DNA test done. I can't at the moment, but it sounds so, like from what I see on Twitter, that it seems like it is really useful in like trying to either get in contact with cousins or just confirming kind of what you already have. And I think I'm at a slight disadvantage, the fact that I can't do one, but I'm fighting through it slowly. Because at the moment, the my problem is having ancestors with very common names:
Mm.
John, Mary, couple of Bridgets, and Patrick's. So I am stuck. Because John was the son of John, who was the son of John. One of my cousins, who is not called John, if you went up from him 5 generations, you have 5 generations of Johns. John was they really didn't stray outside of the traditional names. Like I my great grandmother's Ellen. That was about as non-traditional as they went. They never went outside of that. So it was easy finding her, but not the rest.
Could you get your
Uh,
parents to
so
test?
sorry.
Could you get your parents to test?
Uh, I could, but can at the moment. But hopefully in the future I can. But unfortunately not at the moment. So, oh yeah, and I feel you too, Joanne. That's my problem too. Too many common names. Yeah, there's really a problem in genealogy, particularly mine. But and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Not saying that at all.
That's
But no.
actually the main reason for my my Goodwin brick wall. It's a bit embarrassing, really, being my surname, but I can't get my Goodwin line back beyond 1781 because there's just too many Thomas Goodwins around the Lambeth area, Westminster area. So and the parishes are huge. So I'm hoping DNA might crack it, but it's kind of on the edge of the capabilities of autosomal DNA. So I'm hopeful.
I was hoping you were going to say 1800, but when you said 1781, I felt a little less sorry because I can't even bust back. I can't even get that sentence out. Bust back past 1830. So, little jealous of you, but trying to let it show. So obviously you're working on your books as well. Is there any other bits that you're working on at the moment? Any other projects?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the books are that's my full-time job, so that takes a lot of my time. But
Yeah.
I'm still working on the Dengate, so I'm trying to slowly upload as much as I can to dengates.com that I've been running now for 20 years, and trying to put as much as I can on there to share what I've done, my research and things. I also run the Dungate DNA group as well. So I've had a few males tested with their Y lines, and they've proven to, even though I can't, they're kind of on separate paper trails, so I can't link them up at the moment on paper, but the DNA is one family, so it's just kind of trying to identify how that works. Yeah, so that's another area, and obviously my Goodwin brick wall, and just generally working on various lines of my family tree when time allows.
I was going to say you probably don't have much time if the books kind of take up a chunk of time, and you're doing the Den Gates things, and uh, I can imagine you're probably a fairly busy man with
Yeah,
all that you do.
yeah, and actually, because obviously it's all genealogy, it's very there's lots of overlap, So I'll go to look at
Yeah,
something, some research for the book I'm writing, and I'll think, oh, while I'm in this particular record set, I'll just have a quick look for my own family, or see if there's any Dengates in there, and then there are, and I think, where are they? And then I then start adding them to the family tree, and I've actually found that I've then gone off on a tangent, and I need to pull myself back and go, no, I should be focusing on my own writing here.
yeah. I mean, I've probably taken on a chunk of work with Project Infant that I ended up launching last week, but I'm again just as breaking. Well, kind of just stuck. To put it plainly, just stuck with my own family. So I'm thinking, right, do something else. And I'll eventually get back to it. So before I keep rambling on, um, obviously, as you've kind of been doing it more seriously, as you said, from 1998,
Yeah.
you obviously would have accumulated quite a bit of knowledge in that time. Is there anything that you wish you knew when you started that you now know?
Well, if I'd known where I am now, my goodness, I knew there was a reason why I was spending so much time and money on all these certificates and research and things. It's paid off now. Um, I don't know. It's quite a tricky one. I think probably I kind of wish I'd been a bit more organised and methodical back in the beginning, and been a bit better at keeping documents and kind of in a sensible order, and making a list of the searches and things that I'm trying to undertake. I think it's very easy to get carried away in your research and think, "I'll keep going," and then you come to look at it a few weeks or months or years later, and you think, "I've no idea what I did on that, at that time, because I just haven't got it very clearly organised." And things like my own photographs, I nag all my family members to write on the back of photos and identify them. But then my own photos, if I'm trying to do a search, my digital photos, they're kind of just labeled however my phone or my camera labeled them. And so I then really struggle to find, who the people are. And at the beginning of my research, I
Mm.
kind of would have, if I did label them, I would just put kind of, this is James Dengate, and that there are lots of James Dengates, and so it's a bit chaotic. So I think if I can go back to the beginning, I'd probably be much more methodical about and organised about how I did my research.
Yeah. No, I think I do actually share that grudge a bit as well. Particularly with my grandmother. Now, unfortunately, I never met her, but she had these three massive albums of photos. And they're these kind of, vintage albums that it's a sense that they're stuck in, and you're afraid if you take them out, they'll rip.
Yeah.
They're those kind of albums, and it's like
Hmm.
we really kind of want to see if there's anything on the back. Probably
Yeah.
won't be.
Yeah.
But we don't really want to try and rip any photos apart, because there's some of them. There's one that my mother was able to tell me, and it was so like I think my grandmother was sort of like playing a character in, Annie Get Your Gun or some play like that. It was sort of like a school play or something, and
Hmm.
there's a photo of her kind of in the production of that, and it was like, okay. And like it's those little things. Like, it's fine for the person who knows what's going on in the photo, but when you have
Yeah.
people who are going to, oh, that's a nice photo. Who's that? And who's that? And the person isn't there to tell you. you're at a loss because there are a lot of unlabeled pictures up there, and I think one of them is my grandmother's sister, but I don't know which one.
Yeah, I've got an album
So
like that where you think I don't want to take them out of the album, but you kind of need to see if there's anything on
yeah,
has on the back at all, even if it's just the photographer, and the studio name and a location. But it's a tricky one.
yeah. And obviously it was a good idea at the time, thinking, "Oh yay, the photos won't fall out." But then you
Hmm.
want to take them out, kind of backfired. But oh well. I mean, we can. I mean, one day I might be able to figure out magically who it is, but at the moment I don't see names being reunited with anyone in those albums,
You never
apart from
know.
obviously,
I've identified a few
apart,
pictures, so in the end, so I think yeah, you never
yeah,
know. Keep it out there as a possibility. Don't give
yeah.
up.
Feels like I will one day though. Oh dear. So, what aspect of genealogy do you love the most? I have one thing of what you might say. So, like, is it going to be the records, so like seeing the photos or the stories, or what is it for you?
It's tricky because I do. I obviously I enjoy. Been doing it for this long. I enjoy the whole process, but actually, the thing that I really like doing is like I've never been one to push back on lines just for the sake of it. The Dengates
Yeah.
I have got back to 1637, which is the furthest of any of my branches. That's because it's my one name
Wow.
study, and it's the one I've focused on. But the other lines, I haven't been keen to just get back as far as I can because, like I said, I'm quite cautious about adding them, and I need the documentation that sometimes doesn't exist to allow me to do that. Even if I think it probably is that common ancestor, is that they probably are the parents that I'm looking for. I really need record, a lot of documentation there. So I've never been one to just keep going back on all the lines. What I like to do actually is to go up, a few generations and then go along the siblings and then bring those down to living descendants, and then contact them and ask them what they've got family history wise, and I
Yeah.
then say I'll share what I have too with them. And that can be a bit hit and miss. Some of them will write back and say I haven't got anything. Some of them don't respond at all. But it's amazing
Mm.
how many people over the years have come back and given me so much stuff, photographs, information that it actually ends up very often not being just their own line, but actually it also involves my own branch, so my direct line, because we share as a great great grandparent or whatever. And I'm trying to get photos of all my two times great grandparents, and I've got two missing at the moment. So yeah, I do. I really enjoy that aspect of it, connecting to living people and seeing what I can find there. And but I also love the DNA side as well. So it's a tricky one to just pick one particular thing really.
Yeah, I think that's a good response. I mean, with the photos, because I on my grandmother's side, well, on my dad's side, I should start off with. His grandparents, I was able to get photos for. One of them, I didn't know uh, who was in the photo, and then someone kind of said, "Oh yeah, that's Granny Loftus, and that's Grandad Loftus," and I said, "These are my grandparents. This is my grandfather's parents," and they said, "Yeah." So that was a pleasant surprise. So I have a photo of them on their wedding day, which is nice. And the other uh, grandparents, my grandmother's parents, I'm not ever going to be able to get a photo of because my grandmother was one of seven, but only three of them ended up having kids, and only one of those lines is actually going to continue on, and that's mine. So one of my cousins unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, and there's another cousin who doesn't have any descendants. So essentially, I'm carrying on that line,
Hmm.
um, along with my first cousin. So unfortunately, I won't ever find a photo of my great grandparents because neither cousins have one. So I unless they unless someone's unless someone invents a device that can, take like a screenshot of someone's memory, just a screenshot of someone's picture in their mind, that's about as close as I'll ever get.
What about newspapers?
Um,
Might they have appeared in a newspaper ever?
oh, in Mayo, hardly anyone ever appeared in a newspaper,
Oh, really?
especially mine. No, like my ancestors avoided making sure that they didn't go in the newspaper like the plague. Like it was a case of they made sure, right, whatever you do, just do whatever you want, just don't be in the newspaper. I swear they must have that pep talk before they started life. It's just right. Don't do anything stupid so that you end up in the newspaper so that people can't find a picture of you later on to make life harder for them. Or at least that's how it played out in my head anyway. Um, Anyway, so again, saying it to people who are watching, if you have any questions for Nathan, be it on a book or be it in genealogy, please get them in so that I can ask them. Because this is your chance, so don't miss it. So what is this should be fun coming from an author. What is an interesting story or event that you found in your own family history?
So, I mean, I love all my ancestors dearly. They've all got their own little stories. But like I said, most of them are kind of very South England based. So, one that stands out for me is my great great grandmother Louisa Oakes, because she was born on the island of St Helena, which is off the west coast of Africa. It's a British dependency, but yeah, so she was born there in 1871, and she's always intrigued me because she was of mixed race. She married my great great grandfather in the castle in St Helena. He was with the dragoons who were guarding the island. Because it was run at the time by the East India Company, British East India Company, and so he was there as a soldier, and he met her, and they then came to England and had their family and settled over here. And I've got a copy of their marriage certificate, and she said she was 17 on it, and he was, I think, 21. And then after doing some research, I found out actually she's 15, not she was 15 when she married, not 17. And I was thinking, why? I don't really understand why, why her parents didn't stop the marriage, or why they allowed this to happen. But the problem with St Helena is that pretty well all records pertaining to the island are kept on the island. They haven't been digitized by any of the databases.
Right.
So I keep every time I need to do any research over there, I mean, I'd like to go there and do it myself, but at the moment that's not really practical. So I have to pay the archivist in the castle on the island to do it. And she found that both of Louisa's parents died of tuberculosis before her marriage. So she was basically an orphan. And I think the island has never been self-sufficient. It's always been very poor. And so I think she probably saw this as an opportunity to kind of have a new life in England. But what's quite interesting is her grandfather. He appears on the 1827 census over there as a white slave owner. He had 3 slaves, but Louisa's grandmother was a black freed slave, hence her being a mixed race. I don't know whether she was a slave for Edward Oakes, for her grandfather. I haven't worked that out yet. But I really would like to do is to find the heritage of Louisa, because actually I've got in my DNA, which comes through my mum and through her dad back to Louisa. I can definitely pinpoint the trajectory of this ethnicity is South India, so Sri Lanka and Pakistan and around that area, and that is where the East India Company took their slaves from. So they would land in those parts of Asia, take the people for slavery, and then sail around Africa to St Helena, and the slaves would be then would be there put to work, obviously involuntarily, but their names were changed. So as soon as they arrived on the island, they were given anglicised names. So I don't know if DNA will ever reveal actually what Louisa's grandmother's real name should have been. But I'm
Mhm.
hopeful. But yes, she's very interesting, and they came soon after their marriage, came back to England, and settled in Leighton Buzzard and had 9 children. Um, and she just lived over here, and she complained of the cold because it's very warm in St Helena. But she's one of my most interesting ancestors. Yeah,
That's definitely interesting, and I can only hope that you find who Louisa's grandmother was. I can only hope that
yeah,
one day your DNA sleuthing and perhaps your skills as a you know mystery author might contribute. I hope they should.
yeah. I hope so.
I think they would.
And actually, all the family who were on the island, so the Rokes side as well. There's several family lines that I need to push back because St Helena has no indigenous population. So it was first the various sailors stopped off there, and people lived there on and off, generally passing by with ships, and then they would offload there, stay for a while, fresh water and fruit, etc. Then get another ship out. But it wasn't settled really until kind of the 1600s. And apparently, lots of people who lost homes in the Great Fire of London were kind of went out there to start again. So I need to find not just Louisa's side, but on the black side of the slavery side, but also the other lines as well. So to find out when exactly they arrived in St Helena as well, and where they came from. So, but it's very interesting. But like I say, I need to go over there really to do some research rather than keep paying an archivist.
Yeah,
That would be good.
yeah. Okay, better hope. I hope that you can get over to St Helena to do the research. We'll hope for that. So, oh boy. So what does genealogy mean to you?
Well, obviously, it's quite a lot to me. It's quite important now, given that it's my job as well. Um, well, I mean, obviously, it's just been a really important hobby of mine for a good many years, and now it's my job as well. But I really love the community side of things as well. Things slightly gone off rails, I guess, a bit with the pandemic. But for 3 years prior to the pandemic, I was going out to Roots Tech and meeting lots of people there, and doing shows over in this country as well, like Family Tree Live, and the other one in Birmingham. That name escapes me, that I should remember. And I really enjoy that side of things, and things like Ancestry Hour, and actually getting to meet these people. I guess other hobbies probably have the same sense of community out there, but I think it's really lovely the way everyone gets together, and you can discuss issues in family history and ask questions, and ask for help with various things. So yeah, it's obviously it's very important. It's a big part of my life.
Yeah. And just sort of for the Birmingham one, isn't it the genealogy show?
That's the one. I should remember because I was speaking at the first one, so I should have remembered that one.
That's fine. Uh, but no, honestly, seeing people, physically go to these shows is kind of one thing I'd love to do in the future.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
really
you know, like seeing how massive Roots Tech is. And, I can remember it was kind of the year I joined Twitter, which is 2019. I think both at Roots Tech 2020, that was actually rather close to when the pandemic hit, and also
mm,
at the one in Roots Tech London.
yeah,
There was a hashtag kind of going around on Twitter that was hashtag not at Roots Tech.
yes,
And
yeah, I
I
remember.
championed that proudly because
Yeah,
I couldn't go. But hopefully in the future, I might weasel my way over to Salt Lake City or London. Please do Boots Tech again in London.
yeah,
I'd have a better chance of doing that than Salt Lake City. But I
yeah.
can hope.
I did the London one and the one just before the pandemic. Like it was when it was just about starting, and so just about escaped it. And that was quite fortunate. But it does make a difference. I mean, obviously there's been lots of things have happened on Zoom in the meantime, and that's been great too. But I do think there's something to be said for the personal. You get actually see these people um, outside of lectures and just in passing, and it's a really nice community. I really like it.
Yeah. Right. So, I'm going to ask this one from Kathy. So, Nathan, when you were describing a family tree in one of your books as it relates to a story, example, Edith and Mary are twins, do you take a structure from a real tree or are you inventing the tree?
So back with the early Morton ones, I think that's the Lost Ancestor, that's book 2. So back then, I kind of created them from scratch, just from my mind, and would draw them out in a kind of basic way. And take ideas from my own tree. So I would look at somebody born around that time and think what records are available, and kind of what life was like for those people at that time, and what I know, and what photos I've got, and kind of things like that. But as time's gone on and the books have got a bit more complicated, I think, especially with the series set in America, I have used some trees that I kind of find real trees, and then change names and dates and places, etc., just so that I've got some kind of a structure there. But for the most part, it's actually just in my head, but I do need to jot it down, particularly with the like I say, the American series, because that's a much more complicated family tree structures. So it's pages and pages of family trees actually.
Yeah, so just so you don't lose your way and all that. So yeah, I,
It's
I,
just, it's
I
just really
mean,
helpful.
I started. Oh, go ahead.
It's just really helpful. Like if I've got characters, for example, that are coming from a particular part of, say, Texas, for example, if I've actually got somebody in Ancestry, I can see what records it would come up for, like in the hints, for example, what would relate to that person and those particular areas. So there might be records I don't actually know myself without having something in a family tree program to highlight that. So it's good. It provides me a bit more real life records, really.
Yeah. And I think kind of with the because I tweeted probably about a couple of months ago about kind of writing my own like short, not so much short story, or you obviously got it because I tagged you in and you probably got I don't know how many responses. And it was sort of trying to do uh so like a short story that was genealogy based, and I've written a few pages, but it's just a case of trying to pluck myself out the courage that it won't be total garbage, or that, well, it'll probably still be garbage. I mean, it'll be the first go, but I mean, as long as it's not complete garbage to begin with, I mean, I'll be happy with that. But I ended up having to. Oh yeah, for people who are watching this and who don't know the story behind this, a couple of months ago I was asked to do, or well, my whole English class were asked to do like a short story. Um, where I think it was like where the protagonist finds something that um oh, what was it that um need to try and find answers to something. It was some weird prompt, but I tried to put a genealogy spin on it, and I came back with it, and I ended up doing like a little family tree just to try and work out, who am
Mhm.
I doing,
Yeah.
and and that was it. And I mean, it was the only English essay I handed up that I was actually happy with, because at the time I thought it was great. I thought, next, bestseller. No, a little bit full of myself thinking that, but oh
Well, you
well,
never
I
know.
might get to it
Keep working
one
on
of
it.
these. Yeah, you might be saying that a while, well, for a good while yet. No, I don't think it'll really take off anywhere, but I don't know. I mean, someone thinks that I've been told that Project Infant might end up as a book, but can't guarantee that either. So,
Keep your options open.
sorry, yeah, true. So my last two questions are: I know I skipped across them. I try and change it up a couple of times. So, if people are wondering and they wonder why I haven't asked a certain question, it's because I'm trying to actually shorten it a little, and because I've just realized that they're quite long, and also just to not seem like it's monotonous every single time I do this. So, what advice would you give to a young person starting out on genealogy?
I think two things, but I think the first one is one that probably everybody says, which is to speak to the senior generations in your family, whether that's your parents or grandparents, or if you're lucky enough, great grandparents. Sit down and record their life story as much as you can. So that could be just turn up with a mobile phone and just sit there and ask questions about their lives. And like I said, don't focus on the dates and people necessarily, names and dates and places. Pin that down quickly, but then start to ask questions about their lives. That you just think about the fact that you probably can't, the kind of questions that you can't get answers to in a database. Because if they say, oh, this person was born on this date in this location, you can actually get their birth certificate and prove that that's correct or it's not correct, but you're never going to know what their favorite subject was at school, or what their relationship was with their parents, grandparents, and what they were like as people, and what their favorite childhood games were, etc. So I think that's quite an important one. But like I said, I think everybody says that. You just need to get them while you can, really. And if you can't actually go to physically interview them, then email, write letters, and actually just ask some specific questions. There are various books out there as well that kind of give you questions of what kind of things to ask, because I know you can think, well, what can I ask? So get these books and get some ideas online for types of questions to ask, and get that documented down, and really make sure you say exactly when you got this information and where it came from. And that's another thing I'm kind of guilty of. I can't really remember. I haven't written down when I've interviewed people and what their background to that was. The other side of it, I would say, is if you can, and if you can, stretch to this financially, and also if people are willing, is to DNA test family members as well. I was quite lucky that I got my grandmother to test. She was the only grandparent alive that I could test since testing became available to genealogists. And I've had my mum tested as well, and various cousins and uncles and aunts, and kind of widening out the net of people, because it really can help with the family tree. And I think things are just going to get better and better with third-party tools and the kind of things that Ancestry and MyHeritage and whatever kind of are making available to us, tools available to us to really help pin down the family tree. So I think if you can, if it's within your means, and family members are willing to, then I would say get as many people tested as you can. You've muted yourself, Daniel.
Oh, I just realized that. Oh, that's cringy. So what I was gonna say before I realized I just made a fool of myself was I think you covered all angles there. I think it's I I mean, what else can I say? It's good advice to start off with. What advice that I wish I had when I started, because I didn't have anyone to turn to. As far as genealogy, I kind of self-taught myself, and obviously
Yeah,
Twitter came in handy a lot of times. So,
yeah,
final
me too.
question from me, and this is like two-minute warning for people. So please get them in fast if you want to ask anything to Nathan. So, with times that are changing, more and more young people are getting into genealogy as a hobby. In your own opinion, do you think that there's enough outlets for young people to connect and collaborate uh, with people their age and just talk about genealogy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one for me to answer since I'm not very young anymore. But certainly things have changed dramatically because of the internet. There literally was no way of meeting other young people when I started at all, and it was kind of so the internet's helped hugely with that side of things, obviously, because you've got a platform there, particularly things like places like Twitter and Facebook. You can join those particular groups on Facebook that are of interest to you, like a location or a type of some kind of research angle that you're looking at. I don't really know. I think probably most. It's very hard to answer because I think there needs to be generally more younger people brought into it to start with. I think that societies and some of the big companies need to do better to try to draw younger people in the first place, and then hopefully those platforms would be more welcoming. I mean, you're doing a lot with the Hidden Branch and trying to promote it, but I think I get the impression more can be done, but that it is improving quite fast is my impression as an older person looking in.
I mean, any viewpoint is appreciated, and I do agree with you because I mean, particularly with societies, I I obviously have a way that societies could so like a method that societies could utilize to kind of cut down, could do multiple things at once, and sort of even just seem a bit more appealing because Discord is a popular network that's used, a social network around the place, and the society I think would really benefit from using it because it's
Yeah.
just versatile in what it allows you to do. That it would be perfect for a society from at least how I've used it because I'll be open about this. I use Discord for genealogy and a couple of games I play. So I mean, I use it like it. Obviously, Discord being its original purposes for gamers. The thing is, it can be repurposed into something you want. It does.
Mhm.
It's not limited to that. And I think that's kind of what people think. Oh, it was meant for gamers. It was not meant for genealogy. You can make it for genealogy. That's the thing. You just have to kind of take the plunge or take the leap to kind of get there. So I think on that note, I think we might end. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you to you, Nathan, for tolerating me for the last 47 minutes. Uh,
You're very welcome. Thank
and
you.
taking part. It's been a pleasure having you on. And yeah, see, I'll hopefully see you all next time. And just a note, there won't be any interviews for the next week. Well, I should be back hopefully on the 6th of August, not next week, because I'm taking time off for genealogy again, to just focus on other bits. So I won't be doing interviews next week. So I'll see you on the 6th of August or 7th. I haven't worked it out yet, but I'll see you 2 weeks' time. So see you next time, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.